Imagine if I would hold my hand like this, and I would ask you to look at my hand through your phone, the camera of your phone. And you would be able to see a butterfly moving like that in the palm of my hand. And if I moved, it would move with me, and if I jittered too much, it would fly away. This is augmented reality. Augmented reality is the technology that allows us to overlay virtual content upon real-time streaming. So what do you need? You need a computer, you need a screen. What else do you need? A little camera, perhaps, and internet. All of which is now available in a small little package for us that we call smartphones. So there are two ways of doing augmentation right now. One is to take an object and to augment it. That could be, back in the days, it used to be just barcodes, but now it could be a very complex photo, it could be an object, could be even a human being, could be myself, as I'm moving right now. But there's another way of doing augmentation too, and that's to take little points in space. You remember your geometry classes? Every point has 3 coordinates, x, y, and z. You remember those? Okay. So every point has 3 coordinates, x, y, and z. Imagine if I were able to take this very point in front of us and place an elephant right here and ask for you guys to look at me through your phones. What would you see? You would see that elephant. But it would also mean that you're not going to see me because I'm going to be behind that elephant. Now, what's really exciting is that this world of augmented reality is going to change our world in the way in which we understand the choreography of this space. There are many people who have been interested in the way we do installation art, right? So what is installation art? Installation art is the idea of changing the perception and the experience we have of this space. You have designers, you have architects, you have artists, you have curators in museums who are excited about that. And they use every element that could possibly evoke any of our senses to add and augment and layer our experience, right? So we can use lights, we can use sound. In this very room, for example, there are lights that are targeted towards me. This is part of the choreography of this space right now. So I'm well lit, so you can see me. What else is there? Sound. The very fact that some of you guys are seated on chairs that are slightly on a platform that's inclined is basically to allow for you to experience this environment in a way that the person who is sitting in front of you wouldn't be, hopefully, blocking your view, right? So if you're looking at this TED Talk later on a desktop, is the choreography of this space, the installation art behind it, is the idea of thinking how that desktop monitor sits away from you, and at what height, at what level, how do you experience the sound around it? So all of these things are the way in which we experience this space. And those are, when I came across this technology, I said, oh my God, wait a second. Here you go. We have one new element to add to the list of things that we can use to augment our world. And these are these little points in space right here. Now, legally speaking, if you go to the City Hall, the way in which we understand space is usually based on this little diagram, right? So it's about the contour. So we own the space and how we can implement changes upon it. And it's based on this. So we go to the City Hall, we see the blueprint. Blueprint gives us 2 axes, X and Y. Sometimes, if we want to understand the ownership of this space, if you're on a 2nd floor, 3rd floor of a space, it would allow for elevation, as we call, but it's for the actual physical elevation that happens, right? So it would be for the walls that are erected. It would be for this roof that's erected. It would be for the columns, for the windows. But wait a second. what are we going to do about these little points that I, a little artist, can possibly come and alter? Right? So when I came across this technology and I saw that there's a gray zone in terms of the way in which we understand space legally, and we have yet to define it properly, I got really excited because I said, hey, we can possibly look at the world as a white canvas, as an artist, and place my artwork anywhere I want. Right? So to infiltrate the world the way I want without being kicked out. If you look at the history of art, there have been many artists who have been excited about the notion of infiltration. I myself have been very much interested. There was a project that I did in New York taxicabs where I infiltrated the TV monitor in 6,300 New York City taxicabs as a way to engage with the notion of space and also to think about the power dynamics of invisibility of bodies. And that project was kicked out after a little while. If you look at other artists, from futurist to Banksy to graffiti artists, they have done all kinds of projects where they try to renegotiate their position and positionality in relation to museums. But most of the works were kicked out. The infiltration, the trespassing was kicked out. But with this new technology, what's really exciting is that I was able to place my artwork in the Louvre, and here you go. So I was able to infiltrate the museum and place my artwork in front of Mona Lisa. And you know what's really interesting? Is that because there's no legal jargon about these little points, the volume of the space and the content of augmentation that can happen possibly through augmented reality, because there's no legal jargon around it, the Louvre has yet to find a legal mean of kicking me out. So what I have said is that till that happens, I am part of the permanent collection of the Louvre. There was another project that I did where we placed, we created with some other artists a fifth floor in MoMA. And that project is still there at MoMA. You can go and hold your phone and you're going to see me taking off. And interestingly, contrary to the way Louvre kind of reacted, which was they went silent, they didn't say anything, MoMA actually got excited and tweeted to all their members by saying, hey, we have no control, no curatorial control over what these guys are doing. But hey, go and watch their work. So, a little bit earlier, we looked at some of these two images that were there. One of them was the photo of glasses, and the other one with the contact lenses. These two images are the directions that we are taking in terms of augmented reality. So many people can say, you know what, augmented reality is very clunky, and it's true. Augmented reality requires internet, a very expensive smartphone that must be Apple or Samsung, and you need data plans, right? You need access to internet. And at the end of the day, you also need to have and to know that, hey, Amir has done a piece in the Louvre that you can access through certain application, and you have to know about the application to be able to see it. But here's the thing. If research towards augmented reality is going towards a moment where we're going to have contact lenses, we're going to have wearables, we're going to have glasses. Even glasses are obsolete. It's really contact lenses and little chips. There are researchers who are working towards that. This is how we are going to be augmenting our world. Then what's really exciting and frightening at the same time is that that which we see as content of augmented reality will be less and less distinguishable from the reality of things. So, for example, we can see all kinds of ways in which our reality will be augmented. You're going to walk through any space, and you will wonder who owns the right of creating content for you. And this is a very important question to think about, right? So who are the people, who are the programmers, what are the companies who are creating content that's going to affect the way in which we understand the world? For those of you who are familiar with Photoshop, you have probably seen that there's a little circle we can create. If you don't like the pimple on your face, in post-production, you can put a little, what we call mask, that in post-production understands what's the contour, what's the environment in which the pimple is, and then analyzes that and replaces the pimple with something that looks very real in terms of the texture and the color. Now, imagine that same process of post-production happening live as you walk through any space. So the question is, as you're walking down the street, can you really trust the kind of things you see? You know, if you have, right now, the technology is at an arm length, right? So it's a phone you hold, it's like far away from your body. The technology is becoming more and more closer to your body, is being integrated into your body, into your eyes, glasses, contact lenses, and chips in your head. Then, in the middle of this conversation, you're not going to say, but wait a second, I want to see if this little projector here is really real. You're not going to take out your contact lens and try to see if the reality of things are different than the one that you're seeing. So we are going to be forced to acknowledge that what we see is what is. There's another major question, and that's why it's really important for us to pay attention to augmented reality and artificial intelligence altogether. If I'm having my contact lens in my eyes, I want to know who will get to see what I see. Because everything is going to be digitalized, I will have to have access for it to function to the cloud. So everything goes to the cloud. Who has access to the cloud? Who is going to be able to see what I see and archive? So these are, without being too pessimistic or dystopian, these are important questions to be had. And for us to redefine this space, to understand how augmented reality would affect our lives, a certain number of stakeholders have to come together. So think about it as companies who are hardware companies, such as Apple, phone providers that you have, software companies, the ones who make the content. Then you would have to have also the internet companies, distribution companies, coming to the table and saying, hey, how can we redefine this space? And government agencies. And my take here is that as citizens, we have a responsibility to be part of that conversation and to interject ourselves into those kind of meetings and dialogue that's being created so that we are not left out by saying, hey, this is how things are working out right now. So before that technology really hits us, let's be part of that conversation. And what has been really exciting for me as an artist who works in this field is to say, can we incorporate the idea of the critique of the technology itself into the technology? Now, having said that, as an artist, I keep referring myself as an artist. The art world has a very hard time reacting to technology. If you look at the history of technology and the art world, photography, for example, took a long time before being taken seriously. For the longest time, it was considered as a technique. And it took a long time before scholars said, you know what? We have decision-makings that photographers do that separate them from just being a chemist that could possibly dip paper in the chemical water or could possibly use a lens as a physicist to understand and study light. It goes beyond that. There's so much decision that are artistic that need to be taken when we produce a work of photography. And that's how they tried to argue that photography, even though there's technology behind it, is a form of art. But what's really exciting is that let us not forget, even painting itself, it feels very much naturally, like intrinsically artistic, but painting itself is a form of technology. The way we have learned to create canvas, which is a fabric, weaving fabric, right? The pigments, the colors, all of those are forms of technologies that we have come to accept as a way of creating art. So we have a long way to go before understanding how and if augmented reality can be considered as an art form. But for that to happen, we have to understand the history in which art has been considered, or technology has been considered as an art form, right? So if you look at, for example, if you look at photography, video took a long time. And for it really to have happened is that this was paralleled with another dialogue that was happening. And that dialogue was the notion of understanding art making away from the intensity of the labor through which that was produced, but more towards the value and the merit of the concept through which it was produced. Having said all of this, I want to end with one point. We have had augmented reality in our worlds for the longest time. I was wearing glasses before doing a surgery, laser surgery. So literally, I was wearing glasses that was augmenting my world. So as humans, we have come to understand our lives in an augmented way. And look at, for example, we have added music and sound to have a better life. So what's really exciting is to understand this very point, and that's the point I want to convey here. The world of augmented reality may seem very new, but its underpinning premise is very much familiar, and we have learned already to deal with it if we look at it through our history. Thank you.